Hello, my sisters. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. We were just kind of getting set up here. Welcome to Herbwise and Gemwise, focusing on Zeus and Athena tonight ahead of the full moon this week, which I'm very, very excited about. So hopefully you guys can see me. I'm a little bit casual today because it's been raining and I've been recovering from the flu. So anyway, it is very good to see you. We get to talk about fun things tonight. And I should tell you, the new classes are launching on Thursday. I'm very, very, very excited to finally have the new classes launching. Do you like my my Saint shirt? Very excited to have the new classes launching. And if there's time at the end of tonight, we can talk about that if you have any questions about that. I'm very excited to have that all happening. And in fact, the kits for 2 of the new classes are launching tomorrow, for Herbwise and Gemwise, and then for, not Herbwise and Gemwise, Arrow Magic, and then for Gemwise. The new kits are launching tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, yes. And what you'll realize is we don't have enough kits. So, which means they're not required. You don't have to have them. We're going to be learning about the exact things that are in the kit, so it'd be helpful. But if you do want kits, you'll want to get yours early every month, because otherwise they will be gone. Oh, good to know. Thank you, Heather, for that. Because sometimes it's hard with the handles. I don't know who's who, so if you have a handle that isn't your name, most of you, I think, who don't, who go by a different name or a different handle, I think I know by now, but it's really helpful when you remind me. So good to know. Okay, so we have a lot to cover tonight because Zeus and Athena have a lot of oils and herbs, and I also want to talk about Zeus and Athena a little bit, and I know that we will. Okay, cool, thank you. I don't know about auto ship for the kits just because we don't have enough. If it gets crazy and sabbatical people feel like they don't have a chance to get the kits, then I probably will set something up for Sabbatical for auto ship. I don't know if I'm going to do that across the board. We'll have to kind of see how things go. So the Arrow Magic is going to be 2 herbs and 2 essential oils, and then Gemwise is going to be 3 stones, and one of them each month is an engraved palm stone with the mantra word for that month. So I'm really excited to tell you all about that later this week. Okay, cool. So let's talk about tonight. So it's interesting to me, having been working with the gods and goddesses now for a couple of years, to finally be working with the goddess that my parents chose to name me after. And it's really funny because most people, when they say, oh, what's your name? And I tell them, most people, the first thing they say is, that's not your real name. It's like, I wouldn't have chosen this name for myself. I love it. I've always appreciated my name. It's not one I would have chosen. And we're going to talk a little bit about Athena tonight and Athena's energy. And how people perceive Athena. It's very interesting because some people think of her as a goddess, some people think of her as an ascended master, a la Buddha or Kuan Yin. And so it just depends. I'm curious how you see Athena too. For me, I guess growing up and always understanding that there was an entire Greek pantheon and that Zeus was the king of the gods, and then there were his children, and it sort of fell out from there. I've always grown up thinking of Athena as a goddess and thinking of Zeus as the father of the gods, who was her father. But I also can see how people look at deities in different ways. And it's one of the number 1 questions that I get asked, by the way. I'm so glad you guys are here. Very, very happy to see you. It's one of the number 1 questions I get asked, actually, because a lot of people are struggling. I'm sure you've seen this too. And some of you struggle too. And look, I did too at a certain point. A lot of people struggle with how to work with the gods and goddesses in a way that doesn't either negate their own spiritual upbringing. Do you know what I mean? So can I work with Athena and still be a good Christian? A lot of people struggle with questions like that, and also struggle with how to see the gods and goddesses in a way that is supportive of a broader spiritual practice. And I think it's tricky because there is no one answer for everybody. I always try to put my perspective out there and say, you kind of have to feel into that for yourself. Like, what feels right to you? If it doesn't feel right to think of them as gods and goddesses, then maybe seeing them as ascended masters or seeing them as archetypes, which is another way. I mean, Carl Jung, if we went down the psychotherapeutic road to understand gods and goddesses. You know, Carl Jung and prominent psychoanalytic theorists would say they're just archetypes. You know, they're just parts of us, all these different, you know, aspects and facets of our own identities, and we project them out. And Cindy's saying she sees them as archetypes. And so think, here's a different way, right? So we project the qualities of these archetypes out, and we map them onto another identity. So in the case of Athena, who is not the goddess of war, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. I mean, that's a lot of what happens over the thousands of years, right? Everybody loves Jung. I love Jung too. I mean, I was actually like really properly trained in Jungian psychoanalytic theory when I was in graduate school. So it's really fun for me now to come back to Jung and some of that high theory and look at it from a metaphysical perspective, because I was obviously working with that in a different context. But in any case, so when we let's say, you know, we want to work on being more strategic, thinking a few steps ahead and trying to become more organized, then what we would do from a psychoanalytic perspective is we would project those quantities onto an external figure and then identify with that figure. Does that make sense? So it's almost like we put out there what we need, and to some extent what we need just shows up too. You know, it's like people have been saying, oh, the time is so right to work with Athena because X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, the energies are just in the field. Part of me feels like I choose the gods and goddesses that we focus on. And by the way, the two for February are really fun. I'll talk to you about them tonight as well, because we're already lined up with them most of the year, in fact, for the gods and goddesses. But anyway, I want to encourage you to sort of sit with this question tonight of how do you think about the gods and goddesses, and how do you integrate their aspects into your practice, and whether you see them as literal deities or whether you see them more figuratively, you know, as archetypes. I think it's important to kind of sit with that and see what resonates for you. Pushita says, I see them as a visual figure that holds a specific energy that we can call upon. And that's an interesting thing to me too. You know, my teacher talks a lot about holograms, right? About how we've talked about this, and I mentioned it in your sabbatical opening video for the month, about how one way to preserve some of your energy, but still make yourself available to people, is to create a hologram self that can be out there in the world, engaging separate entities, so it's not draining from your own energy or your own force field. But that, you know, people can draw energy from the archetype or the hologram, but that's not you, the essence of you. And so in a way, it's almost kind of the same thing. Do you know what I mean? When I think about gods and goddesses, I think of them as sort of like holograms or archetypes or energies that exist in the universe. And one of the things that I love so much, especially about the older pantheons, like the Sumerian and the Egyptian and the Greek and the Roman, is that these gods and goddesses have been known to our ancestors for a very long time. You know, so it's like, even if whenever you were born in a previous lifetime, you knew who Athena was. It's kind of a cool thing, right? I mean, that's why I love working with essential oils and resins and stuff too, is because those smells are familiar to you. Almost no matter when you lived before, you smelled lavender and myrrh and frankincense. Like these are and sandalwood. These are smells and deities and archetypes that would have been familiar to a much older you. And so, you know, when you come back to it, a lot of you have said, you know, it's almost like I'm not learning this. It's like I'm remembering it. And I think that's very much what we're doing. I think we're just remembering what we already know. And it's almost like tapping into a library that's stored in your brain. That's how it feels for me anyway. It's like, ooh, I know that. How do I know that? And it's like, you know that because you're old. You're old, but you're cute. You look good for being 5,000 years old. That's always what I joke and say. I'm 5,000 years old, but I'm holding up pretty good. Anyway, so I'm going to light a little sage. Call my energy into present time. Call your energy into present time. Take a nice deep breath. Give yourself the gift of just this moment, which is so, so good. And getting ready for Sabbatical and Illumina next year, where I really do want to finally, once and for all, get into the nuts and bolts of quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement, you know, and really thinking about the fact that within you are all the answers, if you believe in quantum theory. You are the entire universe. What quantum theory tells us is we can understand the universe by looking at any one point, because every point, every item, every object, every crystal, every herb, every oil contains within it the blueprint to create the entire universe. That's what 0 point energy teaches us. And I know you guys are really excited about getting into some of this heavier duty content, and I am too. I think we're ready for it. And it's funny because even what I just told you a year ago, I think it would have been a little bit of a struggle for people to say, oh, what does that mean for that every point, every object, every cell in your body contains the entire blueprint to create your entire being, to create the entire universe. I think a year ago that would have been a little bit of a stretch for us, but now we're like, no, I get it. So the time is right. And I'm very excited. Okay, so I'm going to light my Athena candle. We're going to talk about Athena first. We always go with the primary deity, and then we talk about the secondary or companion deity afterwards. So just taking a moment, close your eyes, calling in, inviting in Athena's energy to be with us tonight. What does Athena bring? Before I tell you from my perspective, what does Athena bring to you? Those of you who have chosen to work with her before, maybe not even this go round, but those of you who have worked with her before as an energy or a deity or an archetype, what do you go to her for? Wisdom, Fran says. For sure, right? I mean, we definitely think about Athena as being wise. Her totem is the owl. What do you call upon Athena for? What do you have to be in need of in order to reach out to her? Nicole says creative solutions. For Yvette, it's strength. Carrie says strength and wisdom, compassion, wisdom, strength. Yes, empowerment, power for sure. And one of the things I love, and like I said, I would not have chosen my name for myself. I didn't name my daughter after a goddess. I had the option to do that, obviously, and chose not to do that. We could talk about that another time, but I wouldn't have chosen my name. But one of the things I love about it is I do think that women need really strong role models. And one of the things I love about Athena is she was counsel, she was advisor mostly to men. Men really took Athena's counsel very seriously. And then, how that gets sort of shaped and perceived throughout history is that, she becomes sort of like desexualized, or, any goddess who is valued by men then all of a sudden becomes masculinized herself. Do you know what I mean? And that's just sort of the natural what happens in history. If a goddess is powerful enough, then we sort of have to strip her of her feminine aspects. And it is funny, I will tell you this, be careful what you name your kids. I have to say, I have as much of her, I think, as a mortal could have. And I don't say that with an ego. I think Athena is a very humble goddess. And one of the things that I feel like I have of her in me, having lived with her namesake for, 43 years, is that, she teaches us the more you know, the less you know, in fact. The people in my life, and I even think about Facebook. We were talking here in the office actually about how weird it will be at some point when like the entire universe is doing Facebook Live. It's like you're going to open your Facebook and it's just going to be all these people talking live all the time, which is either going to be great or it's going to be a cluster. I don't yet know what Facebook is thinking with all that. But it's really funny because what Athena has taught me is the older I get and the more I think I know, the less secure I am in what I have always thought I've known, if that makes sense. It's like the universe is so complex, to me anyway, that every time I think, oh, I've got it, I figured it out, this is how it works, the universe like almost pulls back a curtain to show me, no, you don't have it figured out, actually. And no matter how much you think you know, the universe is vast, and there's no way, I don't think, for any of us as mortals to really grasp it all in a single lifetime, probably not even in a dozen lifetimes. That's right. Answers just breed questions. Isn't that the truth? It's a beautiful quote, actually. I love that so much. Answers just breed questions, and you open a bigger door. So when I see people on Facebook and they're like, oh, I got all the answers, and here's how it is, and here's how, here's what I know, and here's this, and I'm thinking, like, as the years go on for me, I sit and go, wow, I don't know what I know. I have a lot of good questions. Every time I think I have an answer, something shifts. Okay, So let's start by talking about Athena's perfume, because I do want to stay on task. We could talk about this all night long. I know, I love the mystery too, Sherry. And that's the thing too. I'm not in any hurry. It was really funny. I may have told you this already, so don't think I'm senile. I just can't remember if I told you this or not. I was up late one night. I don't sleep very much, and I was up really, really, really late. Maybe it was about a month ago. And what I felt, sometimes I hear messages from my guides, but this was more of a feeling. And the feeling that came over me was a question, which was, if we came to you and said, we will pull back that curtain and you can know it all, would you want to? And the feeling went on and on. That's what, sometimes people say, well, how do I know that that was not just my brain? How do I know this is actually my guides? And it's because I would never have put this thought together this way, truly myself. But the feeling was, if we could pull it back and show you, would you really want to know? Even if it meant that you really couldn't live your life anymore the way you live it today. Because think about it. I mean, in order to do all of the kind of the mundane things and raise kids and have a family and participate in society and work and engage in commerce, right? Like all of these things, it would be very hard, wouldn't it, to do that if you really had access to all of the information. It was pretty powerful, Pushita, I have to say. And my answer was no. And primarily because I'm a mom and I need to raise my children. So if pulling back that big curtain meant that it would be very hard for me to carry out the very important Muggle parts of my life, which is participating in society and raising a family and taking my daughter to dance class and all those things, if it meant that would be really, really hard, then the answer is no. But I have to tell you, there was a moment where I thought about it, I really thought about it. Yeah. And I've seen enough. I mean, I will tell you, so I'm getting ready to do ayahuasca again in about a month and a half. And I have to say, it's taken me a whole year. It's been almost a year now that I did ayahuasca last year. And it's taken me a whole year to get to the point where I could say, yeah, I'm ready. Because it was so overwhelming to see the curtain pulled back. That's what ayahuasca does. It pulls the curtain back. So, well, one day, that's one of my dreams, is to actually be able to do big journeys with big groups of people. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I mean, it's calling and the opportunity is presenting itself. And I do find that when everything converges like that, it's like, okay, then maybe it's the time to do it. So we'll see. Aaron. Fantastic. Yeah, mine will be probably 2 weeks after yours. And I have several friends who are going in this weekend. So it's the season somehow. Everybody's feeling the call. One day. It's really funny because I do think at some point I will lead people through journeys such as that, but I think it will be much later in my life. Because I do think that a lot of the things that are sort of like classified and hard to access now, I actually think in 20 or 30 years, they'll be much more widely available and easier to access and therefore easier, for people like me to facilitate in bigger groups, for sure. I'm doing it locally, but the woman who is shamaning me is local, but she's south and east of here. That she was trained in the Amazon. It's intense. You never know what you're going to get. It's like getting on a ride you can't get off. It is getting on a ride that you can't get off. So you just have to be really ready to say yes to that. And it takes time. There's no getting off the ride if you don't like it. Okay, so let's talk about Athena. I just put some of her perfume on. Did you like her perfume? The 2 full moon sets are the 2 perfumes for this month. Entirely pure, 100% essential oil, nothing synthetic. I really wanted these oils to be very, very powerful. Athena perfume has agar wood, also known as oud. It is a resin, and it is highly sought after, thousands of dollars per ounce. But I really wanted, if I was going to do, and this is like Athena 3.0, you know, I think this is literally the third version of Athena that I've crafted. And I really wanted this one to be it, because I didn't want to go back and do it again. You know, like the first two, I felt like they were good, but there was something I just didn't hit the mark. I'm really hard on myself when it comes to perfumes. And the first two I thought were good, but they weren't quite there. I appreciate that very much, actually, Amy, because I felt like I did it. You know, it's one of those things where it felt right. So I was really happy with it. So the essential oils, if you wanted to recreate it for yourself, is agar wood or oud, cypress, and then you have mugwort. And the one that bites, you know, there's a little bit of a nip in this oil, a little bit of a bite to it. That's the mugwort. You're always going to smell that. But it's highly medicinal. Mugwort is very important. I mean, you really should have mugwort in your collection. And one of the reasons I wanted this one to be a pure blend is, if this is the only mugwort you work with, it's a really good, clean, organic mugwort that's in this particular perfume. What's mugwort for? It's interesting. You know, there's a little Facebook ad going around. I don't know if you've seen it. You know, people do their things and it goes viral, and then it's in everybody's feed. But there's like a supplement going around, like this brain boost supplement. And I was just curious what was in it from a medicinal perspective. And so I clicked on it and I went and looked at the ingredients. One of the like number 3 ingredient in the thing is mugwort. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And people are finally understanding the incredibly powerful benefits of some of these herbs that taken in the right dose. And let's see, Lisa says, this mugwort the same as we got in the aromatherapy sample. It is. It's the same mugwort. Same mugwort, just diluted, you know, because it's mixed with the cypress and the agar wood in this blend. So it's a little more subtle. Mugwort on its own is very hard to tolerate. It just like, it literally like clears your sinuses. It's very intense. But people were afraid of mugwort for a long time, just like they were afraid of absinthe for a long time, which is why absinthe was illegal until, gosh, does anybody know? I think absinthe's only been legal for the past like 20 years or so. I'm a big New Orleans girl, so when I go down, I like to drink absinthe. And I was just having a conversation when I went down this last time in October with one of my favorite bartenders in New Orleans, and we were talking about the fact that, like, it's ridiculous. The amount of wormwood you would have to ingest to have truly a hallucinogenic experience would be gallons. I mean, you'd have to ingest gallons of intense, like tightly brewed, tightly distilled wormwood in order to have any kind of hallucinogenic experience. But what people said about absinthe, you know, which is not, we're not talking about wormwood in particular tonight, but mugwort's very much in that vein too, was, oh, you got to watch out because you'll have hallucinations. Now, I will say mugwort, if you were to burn a lot of mugwort and inhale it directly for an extended period of time, you would start to travel a little bit. You would. And that, I mean, that's not that that's a bad thing. Some people really like to burn mugwort and really, you know, inhale it intensely before they do psychic readings or tarot readings of any kind, because it does put you in a little bit of an altered state. But again, at least in my experience, I have never inhaled enough mugwort where I couldn't go drive a car. And the same thing is true with Damiana. Damiana is one of the first herbs that we're going to study in the new Aromagic class in February. And we're going to talk a lot about Damiana because people have had the same kind of hysteria around Damiana. In fact, you can't sell Damiana on Etsy. But the amount of Damiana you would have to ingest or smoke to have any kind of, even a very slightly sedative effect, is more than you could possibly consume. But I will say, I do think we as a society, I'm curious to know your thoughts on this too, with things like mugwort, it's almost like we're paranoid. I think as a society, we're really scared of what would happen if people engaged all of their senses and woke up a little bit, decalcified their pineal gland, and actually had access to the complete amount of intelligence that's available in your brain. I think as a society, we have a little bit of phobia around how hard it would be to control people if they actually used all of their senses and were fully awake and aware. Just my 2 cents. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I do have a brother though who talks about, you know, chemtrails and all that stuff, and I'm not as interested in that. But I do think that with things like, you know, mugwort, you're not in any danger working with mugwort from my experience. Okay, so agar wood we've talked about, deeply meditative. Of all of the, what I would call the meditative essential oils, and think of sandalwood as being in this category, of all of the highly meditative, Nag Champa probably would also be, Nag Champa, of course, comes from the champaka flower, which is a flower that grows wild in India, especially along the Ganges River. If you think about the high florals and the deeply meditative scents, I would say that of all of them, agar wood is not only the most expensive, but I think probably the most profound in terms of its ability to shift your consciousness just by smelling it. My friend Stefania Ferrara, who's the hibiscus moon, she loves blue lotus for that reason. And I love it too. And blue lotus can actually, I mean, you inhale enough blue lotus, pure blue lotus essential oil like I've offered to you before, puts you in a slightly softened state, which can be really good for meditation, really good for doing any kind of psychic or tarot readings. Okay, cypress. I want to tell you 2 stories about cypress. You ready? So most people, when I tell them how much I love working with cypress, especially if it's an Asian person, kind of goes, really? Because to most people, cypress is the tree of the dead. In most countries, including all of the Asian countries. Yeah, Sherry says she loves to burn agar wood chips. I throw some in my fire. If you were to come to my house right now, and if I were to turn on my fireplace, I have Palo Santo sticks in there, I have agar wood chips in there, I have sandalwood chips in there, because you can burn. And I highly recommend that you do that, especially because so many of us have freezing cold temperatures right now. So the party bonus is you get to light a lot of fires. If you have a fireplace, put some chips or you could even sprinkle a little bit of your Athena herbs on there. It would be beautiful. You could also put Zeus's herbs on there. And the blend of them together, I don't know if you tried that, smelling the tins. And then putting them together. They're really complementary, the 2 tins of herbs this time. Would make a beautiful, just sprinkle it on your fire. You will love it. It's a whole nother way to use your herbs. Okay, so like I was saying, so Asian people say, oh my gosh, it's the tree of the dead. Why do you use that? Why would you put that in perfume? Well, that's because in Greek and Roman cultures, it was the tree of wisdom. And in fact, cypress trees were planted all the way around the oracle at Delphi because cypress was believed to give the oracle her power. And so she would go and they would bring her offerings from the cypress trees. Cypress trees produce these little nuts, which actually are said to promote fertility. Yeah, Lisa. Actually, Lisa, the best thing to do if you don't have a fireplace, and because a lot of times you can find them at really good prices and stuff too, at like Home Depot and Osh, is go and get a fire pit. It's a fun thing to have in the backyard. And then when you have, high holidays like Beltane, it's really fun at Beltane because Beltane is a fire holiday. It's really fun to build a little fire and put your herbs in there. Pushita, yes, Greek and Roman cultures have seen it as the tree of wisdom, whereas mostly that's been the Asian cultures that have seen it as the tree of the dead. So they ring the oracle at Delphi. It is thought to bring calmness and tranquility, as well as protection. It is known to ease pain from grief and loss, and also helps to heal from trauma. Yeah, well, Lisa, that's almost just as good. I would say get out there and take it to the beach. At least you can do fire pits at your beach. We can't do them here, but there's a beach in El Segundo called Dockweiler Beach where we can go and burn things. You're not allowed to burn, to have like open fires at the local beaches here in LA. It's kind of a bummer, but I also understand it too. So PTSD. Did you know cypress is really, really good for helping people who have been exposed to trauma? And it's interesting because a lot of times when people come to me, they've just come through something traumatic. They've either experienced an intense loss. I have worked with a lot of soldiers in my time before Sage Goddess and also after Sage Goddess. Before Sage Goddess, I was a professor at a university that had a large military program. Now, as in my role with Sage Goddess, I have a lot of people come to me either because their partners have PTSD from being involved in military battle, or the soldiers come to me themselves. With some measure of success too, and ironically, the most helpful product that I've ever made for PTSD is Magica Rosa perfume, which it's a long story, but there's a lot of testimonials about it. But if you were to choose an herb for PTSD, like what's really, really helpful, I would actually combine from the 2 kits, I would combine cypress with yarrow. And there's yarrow in Zeus's herbs. So if you know anybody who has PTSD, you can actually make a really powerful, relaxing, and very healing incense by combining the yarrow with the cypress. And those are both relatively accessible too. And then mugwort, like I said, for divination, prophetic dreams. You know, they call it the witch's herb, right? And mugwort, even when you hear like, you know, people making fun of little spells and things like that, a lot of times you'll hear them say mugwort and other things. So it's always been considered something that is used for divination, and it's quite potent for that too. But like I said, don't be afraid of these things. If there was something in it that I thought would be harmful to you, I would tell you. I mean, I really would tell you. From my perspective, everything that is in these tins is very useful. Okay. So those are the oils in Athena's perfume. Let's talk about the herbs. So the herbs are olive leaf, nutmeg, and cedar tips. And a lot of the olive leaf, you know, my dad likes to harvest the herbs for and the plants for Sage Goddess. So a lot of the olive leaves come from my dad, which I thought was really sweet too. That's his contribution to this month's kit. So olive leaf is, did you know, one of the most protective herbs that you can work with, trees that you can work with, olive trees. So olive leaf is for potency, fertility. It helps with erectile dysfunction. Just saying, I don't think any of you have erectile dysfunction, but you may know some sweet person who does. So, and it's funny, that came up, not today, but like in the last week or so, I ended up having a conversation with somebody, and somebody was asking me about erectile dysfunction. And I said, you know, is it not common knowledge that most men experience some kind of erectile dysfunction starting in their 40s, sometimes in their 30s? Like most, like 90% of men, that's the statistic. But what's really sad is men don't talk about that. And so men feel like it's just them. I don't know if you have any experience with this, but it is the truth. I've done my homework because I have so many people who come to me about erectile dysfunction. So most men starting in their 30s, but if not in their 30s, definitely in their 40s, and for sure in their 50s, have some level of dysfunction. And then they don't talk to each other, and they barely want to talk to their partners about it. And so it becomes this whole like kind of like ego thing. And if they knew that every other man was suffering from it too, they wouldn't feel quite as bad about it. I feel bad for men, because here's the thing. If you and I had something like that, I mean, you know, our sex drive goes down for most of us, right? Starting with like perimenopause, but we talk about it. So it's not like we're all sitting around and we've all lost our sex drive, but we think it's just us, because women talk. We're like, do you want it? No. Do you want it? No. I mean, that's not me. I have a high sex drive, but most women have lost it. But we talk about things like that, right? Versus men who are like, I got stuff going on, but I'm not going to talk about it to anybody. You know, women talk about everything. Okay, there's nutmeg in here, and there's nutmeg because nutmeg brings intellectual power. Might be kind of funny, but nutmeg brings intellectual power to the bearer. Nutmeg also brings money, prosperity, luck, protection, and confidence. I just like nutmeg. I like the taste of nutmeg. So, but the fact that it has all these other properties. And as I'm talking, what I advise you to do, I really want you to, you know, you release the oils in your herbs when you crush them with your fingers. If you guys cook, you already know that. You know, it's like, how do you release the oil from your rosemary or your thyme when you're cooking with it? It's by crushing the herbs with your fingers. So even as I'm talking, just do that and smell them and give yourself a chance to really like connect. If you have charcoal lit, then even better, just burn a little bit so you can really get the essence of I'm just going to say, if I have a clean disc. I'm just going to burn a little bit of it, because that's really how you're going to get the full experience. And last month you couldn't really burn them because one of the tins had rice in it, and tea wasn't really designed for burning. It was more as an offering. This month's are really nice for burning. So I'm just going to light my charcoal. That's what I'm doing right here. I love to use if you're using charcoal at all, and don't be scared to use charcoal, because it's a really fun way to burn your herbs. But just make sure you don't touch this part, because this part gets super fast or super hot super fast. And I just don't want, you to get your fingers in there. You'll know it's done when it starts to kind of spit and there's little red little dots all over it. That's how you know it's off to a good start. Okay. Give it a second to heat up, and then just sprinkle a little bit. I'm sprinkling Athena's on first. And beautiful cedar. Cedar is considered to be a grandfather tree. Cedar brings courage. Cedar banishes fear. All the things that Athena does. And it's funny because even though she's a female goddess, she has kind of a grandfatherly energy to her, don't you think? Yeah, Nicole, that's funny. Nicole's cat knows what's going on. I love that. Cats are very aware. They know. Yeah, but don't get nervous. You know, that's the thing. If you have a bad experience one time with something like that, like with charcoal, don't give up on it. You may have had a crappy brand too. You know, like they're not all created the same. And so I know a friend of mine had one kind of explode on her, and ever since she's been like, you can burn whatever you want on that, but I'm not doing it. But I really want to try to persuade you to use it, because it actually is very helpful. I got 2 different cups of tea going here for 2 different things, one for my throat and one for crazy weather. Okay. So olive leaf, we talked about that. Nutmeg, money, prosperity, luck, protection, intellectual power, confidence. Cedar tips bring strength, purification, power. But like I said, because cedar is considered to be a grandfather tree, it really does come in with this sort of this nurturing, and it brings a lot of feelings of safety and protection, which is one of the reasons I love to burn cedar. If you've ever been with cedar trees in the forest, then you know kind of the majesty of a cedar tree. There's really nothing like it. I mean, just even like leaning against a tree and touching, I love to run my hand along a long branch of cedar and like sort of pull the tips off with my hand. It's such a beautiful sensory tactile experience, because cedar is flat and kind of soft. Have you worked with cedar before? There's just something to it. And I know I'm an herb person, so I get really excited about things like that, but I love working with cedar. And so you have beautiful cedar tips in your tin. So any questions about the perfume or the herbs for Athena before we go into her stones? Yeah, Lisa's lucky. She said that when her mom's mountain has cedar, so she gets a lot when she goes up there. And that's the thing. I mean, if you there's a lot of juniper locally here in California, a lot of cedar. Depending on where you go, there's a lot of artemisia. There's a lot of white sage in certain parts of California. So you got to kind of learn what's native around you. Suzanne has it too, and then take advantage of that. You know, you want to harvest it in an appropriate way. And always remember, if you take anything from trees or plants, if you harvest it all, always leave a little offering. I carry around like little chipstones and things in my glove box in my car in case I stop somewhere and take an offering. And if you don't have anything to leave, what we recommend is that you sing. Just sing to the plant. That's an offering. Your voice, your love, you know, you can, you know, blow a wish or an intention. But always say thank you to the plants and the trees when you harvest from them at any time and in any way. So it's very important to say, you know, a nice thank you for what they will do for you. Okay, so let's talk about Athena's stones. I love these 2 stones, by the way. Not that I don't love Zeus's stones, but Athena's stones truly are Athena's stones. So this was kind of a no-brainer, the tiger's eye. There is no other stone that is so specific to Athena than tiger's eye. Now, why tiger's eye? In ancient cultures, tigers were thought to be among the most powerful of all of the animals. And so a tiger's eye was thought to have they attributed all of this wisdom and foresight and courage and strength to the tiger. And so that's where the name comes from. Now, it has a light play effect, tiger's eye, called chatoyancy. And it's hard to see in artificial light. It's much more easy to see in daylight. But there's almost like a cat's eye effect of tiger's eye too. And that chatoyancy is what tiger's eye is known for. Oh, that's cute. Bushita said it was her first crystal. It would be a great first crystal too, by the way, because for kids, it helps them open, you know, and awaken their intuition. It keeps them safe. It brings them courage. It helps them feel protected. It's gentle though. Now here's the thing. There's tiger's eye and tiger iron. And those are very different stones. I wouldn't give tiger iron to a child. And that's because it has more, tiger iron usually has, in addition to tiger's eye, has red jasper and hematite. And hematite is a very, very, very heavy grounding stone. Most kids don't need that. I mean, it's almost like an anchor. I would work with a more gentle grounding stone. So love tiger's eye for kids. Not sure I love tiger iron for kids. I'm so glad you like it. I really cherry picked the tiger's eye for this set again because It was my set, so I wanted it to be really, really nice for you. So I'm glad you like the pieces that you got. So tiger's eye mostly comes from the United States now, for the most part. It's mined in the western half of the United States, largely. And it brings intuition, protection, inner vision, and courage. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in the context of, and I see your question, Melanie, about the blue. The blue is part of the same mine. It's just a different growth process that yields the different color, but you'll find blue tiger's eye, hawk eye, or hawk's eye, and tiger's eye in the same vicinity. I wanted to talk about that for a minute. So I brought up quantum mechanics earlier, and that whole concept that in the smallest particle, like in the cells of your body, or in a single cell of a leaf, or in a point or a dot in the universe, the entire blueprint for the rest of the universe exists, right? That's 0 point. Tiger's eye represents that in a way. So tiger's eye, instead of trying to push you to look outside of you to locate your power, tiger's eye, the call of tiger's eye is to come inward and try and locate your power and your wisdom internally, your own inner vision, the inner voice that guides you. And what's interesting to me about that, even though everybody sees tiger's eye as Athena stone, and I agree with it too, but for me, the reason primarily why I think of it as Athena stone is Athena does the same thing. You know, the call of Athena is not to look outside for your wisdom, but actually to pull within and recognize you have your own compass, you have your own, your own intuition that guides you. And if you really can trust your intuition and learn to listen to your own inner voice, you will have all the answers that you need. You just have to listen, and then you have to follow the guidance, that comes from that. So I love that tiger's eye becomes this reminder of you have the answers. They're all there. The question is, you asking the right questions? And then are you going to listen when the answers come? Does that resonate with you guys? Aaron says, I gave my son tiger's eye when he was having anxiety at school. Yeah, I mean, seriously, for bullying, anxiety, all the things, right, that kids suffer and go through, I think tiger's eye is the absolute best stone. And if you think about it, I mean, there is, I don't like to talk about politics, and so I'm not going to talk about it right now either, but there is rampant anxiety in the field right now, just in terms of what's going to happen in the next week as our country goes through this huge shift in its leadership. And I think even now, a lot of us are having to, instead of, looking externally and projecting all of our fears onto whoever, whatever, wherever, can call that energy in and actually try to build and develop some strength from within. I think that's the better path. So that's what tiger's eye is for me. And then Turritella agate, it's a really powerful stone for shamanic journeying, Turritella agate. I chose it for Athena because it brings stability. It helps you overcome all of the low vibration emotions like fear, anxiety, bitterness. It helps you call that stuff up to release it and let it go. Do you know what the markings are? Oh, that's really sweet. I love reading your comments. I see your comment, Kimberly. It's really sweet. Do you know what the little dots are? Do you know what those markings are? Little sabbatical pop quiz for you tonight. What are those little markings on Turritella? They are little fossils. Little fossils of what? Little fossils of what, though? Do you know? They are little shells and little snails. Isn't that cute? They're little seashells. Look at this one. I know it's kind of a shitty camera, but do you see? I mean, that is a creature right there. And that's a little creature right there. 1, 2, 3. Do you see it? 1, 2, 3. That's a little creature right there. So I love that because I love ammonites for the same reason. I love anything that was once organic and has now, solidified and fossilized and agatized, and coralized and quartzized, and it's all become stone now. So there's agate, there's chalcedony, there's quartz, all in here. It's like this little powerhouse. It is little baby snails. It's this little powerhouse stone. And a lot of people overlook it because it's not pretty. And in fact, at Tucson this year, I'm bringing home a bunch of rough Turritella because they asked me if I wanted them to tumble it. And I was like, nope, I want rough Turritella. in big chunks like that, because I want to work with it for journeying. And that's what I love about it. Because it's got chalcedony, which brings peace. It's got quartz, which raises an intense vibration. It has all these little creatures that bring their little sentient wisdom, right? And all the things. I mean, it's time captured. This is a moment in history stopped, right? Isn't that beautiful? I really love it. So that's what that is. And those are its metaphysical properties. So if you're trying to let go of the low vibe stuff, if you're trying to, move on and not be bitter and not hold grudges and not be resentful and all those things, there you go. That is a really good stone for you to work with. All right, Athena. Athena, darling, we are done with you for this evening. Until Thursday. Very, very grateful for her and for what she has taught me. To the humility that she has brought me. I love it. I love, 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 love it. Okay, now let's talk about Zeus. It's funny, on my Facebook, there's that little about section, and mine says, I'm the daughter of the father of the gods. And somebody wrote me a message one day, it was a couple weeks ago, and they're like, do you really think you're the daughter of the father of the gods? And I wrote back and said, yes, I sure do. I mean, literally, my name is Athena, and Zeus is my father, and he was the father of the gods. Anyway, I thought it was really funny. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much who I am. People get their panties in a bunch about the weirdest things. Okay, so let's talk about Zeus. Did you like Zeus better, or did you like Athena better? Perfume. I have to be honest, I liked Athena better. But again, Zeus is Zeus is important. So I just happen to like the scent of it, of Athena better. But in some ways, I like the medicinal properties of Zeus better. Isn't that interesting? And, well, good. I'm glad you guys liked it. Try them together. Athena brings out this other note in Zeus that I don't smell until I smell the two together. It's like she changes him somehow. Sherry didn't get Zeus, so don't worry. By the way, we're hoping at some point down the road to bring back certain parts of the kits that were really powerful, like the Triple Goddess tin that everybody wants refills of. So if there's something that you're missing, I'm hoping at some point we'll be able to fulfill that. Yeah, they're very much the yin and yang, I think, to each other. But if you think about the energies, they are too. So I think you know the story of Athena, right? That she emerged from Zeus's head fully formed. She had no mother. It is the pagan immaculate conception. Okay. And if you've been with me for a long time, then you've heard this story before. But if you're newer-ish, it's still funny to tell you. So my mom and I have always had a difficult relationship because I never fit into a box, really, my whole life. I never fit into a box. And my mom is like a box person. She really likes boxes. So we were always, my whole life, like this, right? Even though I'm so much like her in so many ways. I mean, she and I have the same intuitive gifts, and she's a very gifted woman, but we've been like this my whole life, even now. But it's really funny. I mean, there's a time when I looked at her and I was like, Mom, why would you name your daughter after a pagan goddess of war who had no mother? Why would you do that? And it's really funny because I'll never forget that conversation. And she was like, I probably should have thought about that a little bit. And I remember that during that conversation, so my name was Jennifer, and you probably heard this story too. So my parents had put my name down on the birth certificate. My name was Jennifer. My dad couldn't say Jennifer because he has a very, very, very thick Greek accent. So it just didn't sound like Jennifer. And so my mom said, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to have her whole life where you can't pronounce her name. But Jennifer was a really popular name in the early 70s when I was born. There were a lot of Jennifers, okay? So my dad said, "What about Athena?" And my mom said, "Okay." And my mom was like, in Greece, like we really don't name our kids after deities. Like it's not a common thing. So anyway, they decided on Athena Irene, and Athena is the goddess of strategy and war. Irene is the goddess of peace. And then it turns out, so that was a complete diversion. It turns out, literally, neither of them knew, I guess, that my dad had two aunts, great aunts, who had died very close to each other under mysterious circumstances. And one was Athena and one was Irene. One was Athena and one was Irene. I think that's an interesting story. And he never knew them. Like nobody knew them. There wasn't a lot of people who knew them. But the fact that there were two sisters, two great aunts who had died in close proximity with those names, kind of meant to be maybe. My parents are funny people. My mom is home, by the way. She's out of the hospital. So thank you for asking. It was really nice to spend time with her at her house last night instead of in a hospital room. But anyway, that's the story. So let's talk about Zeus. We're going to go through it a little bit quickly. We are going to go a few minutes over the top of the hour, but that's how we roll sometimes. Yeah, crazy, right? I mean, from Jennifer to something completely different. And that my name has served me well. It really has. I'm very grateful to them for my name. Okay, so Zeus's perfume, juniper, pine, and yarrow essential oil. Did you know that yarrow essential oil is blue? It's like that color blue, like where my finger is right now. That's the color of yarrow essential oil. It's gorgeous. It's like this royal blue. If you remember Held perfume, does anybody remember Held perfume? It's an old one from back in the day, but it was made with pure yarrow and blue chamomile and blue, like the really like hard distilled peppermint, which is very dark. And it's like syrupy, viscous kind of blue oil. Held is still one of my favorites. It's difficult to access and difficult to make, which is why I retired it. But yeah, it's that blue, that cobalt blue right there. It's gorgeous. Okay, so we have yarrow in the perfume, which is for healing and as well as connecting a couple together in love. Yarrow is one of the herbs that was always used in hand fasting ceremonies in Celtic times, in pagan hand fasting ceremonies. So yarrow has been considered very important for connecting couples. My friend Pixie Campbell calls yarrow nature's Band-Aid. And even though yarrow is really difficult to harvest because it's prickly and sticky, but it will heal almost anything. And if you make a tincture out of yarrow or a salve out of yarrow, it'll heal burns and cuts and scrapes and everything. Yeah, so pine, sorry about that. I didn't see the comment or the question. Pine and juniper and yarrow are the three in the in Zeus's perfume. Okay, juniper is both in Zeus's tin and it's in the perfume. That's because juniper is known to be one of the most important herbs, or trees, I should say, to Zeus. And your beautiful juniper berries in your tin. Okay, so juniper is for making a clean break, new beginnings, as well as success and growth, personal growth, physical growth, financial growth. Juniper grows things, but it also brings a really nice, healthy, clean break. If you went through something traumatizing or you had a bad breakup or something like that, juniper, especially like smudging with juniper, can help clear the space so that you can start over with kind of a clean slate. It's a beautiful smudge, actually. One of my favorite ways to burn, I'm actually going to put a little bit on my charcoal disc. If you have a good charcoal disc, by the way, you shouldn't have to relight. It should stay pretty hot for you. Sometimes you have to poke it with your lighter. You may have to relight it, but chances are, as soon as you touch it with your lighter, you're going to see it's already going. I love to burn white sage and then burn juniper. So clear out all the negative stuff first, especially like if you're moving into a new space, for example, because juniper is used very often in home blessings and in business blessings. So what you do is you burn your white sage first to clear out any negative energy, and then you burn your juniper to call in, good sweet energy. Yeah, and you can burn that with sweetgrass, for example. That would be a nice combination, a little juniper, a little sweetgrass, to call in the sweet spirits and summon a beautiful new beginning for yourself in your life. That is right, Rebecca. That's right. In fact, isn't it Hendrix that gin that's made with juniper? I can't remember. I think it is. I think it's Hendrix gin that's made with juniper. Okay, hyssop. Hyssop is the most powerful purification herb that you can work with. Hyssop. I'm sorry, we're still talking about the perfume. Let me go back. Pine, we talked about this, is for new beginnings. I'm sorry, no, sorry. Juniper's new beginnings, clean breaks, success and growth. Pine is for healing and allowing yourself to feel a sense of relief from old wounds. Pine. So pine also generates a certain amount of like loving kindness for your own heart. And that's why when people have pine trees in their home, I think that's the most peaceful kind of tree to have. Because a lot of people write to me and say, you know, you talk about trees all the time. So which tree should I get? Should I get a fir tree for my house? Should I get a pine tree for my house? And I always say, if you're going to get a real tree, you should get a pine tree because it brings loving kindness. It helps you to release and let go of anything that you've been holding from the past. And if you were to, I don't know, maybe make little ornaments out of juniper for new beginnings, your whole tree can become a symbol of kind of starting over in your home. Yeah, pine does. Just the scent of it is healing. You know, you can even diffuse just a little bit of pine. That's why burning this is so beautiful too, because you can diffuse the oil. And if you diffuse this, interestingly enough, the number one oil or the note that you're going to smell is the pine when you burn this. That's the first thing you're going to smell. After that, you'll smell the juniper. It'll dry down to the yarrow. Okay, and then in your herb 10, there's juniper, which we talked about. Hyssop, which I just said is the most powerful purification herb that you can work with. It creates a spiritual opening. Some people call hyssop the portal herb because it sort of knows where your spiritual development path is taking you, and it creates sort of an opening. And it can soften that for other people too. Like if there are people in your life who are sort of resistant to their spirituality and you keep thinking, you know, I wish that person would soften or open a little bit or be more open to my views, for example, you could work with hyssop. I mean, not in a manipulative way, but you could burn hyssop around the house. You can make a little medicine pouch with hyssop in it, and just setting the intention that in your home, there'll be a deeper sense of spiritual opening and purification and awakening. And so hyssop is what you would use for that. Oh, interesting. I love that, Deb. Deb says she used to love to stand in the woods and breathe in the pine smell. And honestly, being in the woods at all is healing. If you have woods where you are, when I lived in Northern California, I went to the redwoods all the time. And it felt like a womb, you know, it felt like a cradle when we would go up there. Lisa says, use juniper berries on bracelets for children to ward off nightmares. Isn't that interesting? I didn't know that, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It does, because it helps you release fear too. You know, juniper creates safety in much the same way that cedar does, actually. And then there's little crushed up pine cones. And I'll tell you why. The pine cone, if you start researching the pine cone, you're going to go down a rabbit hole. So let me just give you the short version, okay? The pineal gland in your brain, which is where your third eye is, it's right behind here in your brain, looks like a pine cone. And that's why you hear about third eye pine cones, you know, the people who cut those pine cones and make them into sacred jewelry. The pine cone shape is at the Vatican. There's a huge pine cone with the statue outside the Vatican. You see the pine cone in a lot of the Sumerian art, and that's because, I mean, there are whole theories about why that is, in fact, but it's because most of us think that they were working with the pineal gland of the brain, even early civilizations, and activating the third eye even more powerfully than we do today. In fact, most people say that they were activating the third eye and activating that pine cone, that pineal gland, to be able to astral project, you know, to be able to travel astrally, which I believe is probably possible. Yeah, so here's the thing. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, let me teach you how to go down there, but then don't blame me when you're up all night watching all these YouTube videos, okay? Maybe I should just write it up and summarize it for you, but if you go to YouTube and you start searching pineal gland and pine cone and Illuminati, you're going to pull up all of these. You're going to lose your mind. It's crazy. I think it's true. You know, I mean, I kind of leave it to you, but there are endless videos. Literally, you'll be able to go down a rabbit hole. And then what will happen is you'll be in weird places and see the pine cone. You know, it's even on some of our U.S. currency. I mean, I'm telling you, there's something to it all. And when they start like tracing that line across like art from ancient times all the way through modern times, you're going to kind of go, maybe there's something to it. Okay, so I crushed it up and put it in here because to me, Zeus is the pinnacle of activating that seat of intuition, right? And really like, being able to have that deep awareness, that total connection with the ascended masters, the higher self. I mean, I think of Zeus coming down from Mount Olympus and just, creating, which is what he did. And so for me, it just seemed like an appropriate addition to his tin. Zeus's stones are only 2. It's fire opal, which I sent to you in water because opals get really dry and they lose their luster. And so you have to keep your opals hydrated. Did you know that? So I sent you your fire opal in a little vial of water. And then clear quartz. I tried to send really sexy pieces of clear quartz too with interesting markings and stuff for Zeus's kit. It's the first time I've actually done a full moon kit where I made one of the stones quartz, but that's because for me, think of Zeus as father of the gods. I mean, it's almost like what higher frequency being is there, and then what higher frequency gemstone is there? There kind of isn't anything higher frequency than quartz. So that seemed like the perfect pairing. He sure did, Nicole. That's pretty much all he did. Oh, we're gonna have a fun time in Sabbatical probably tomorrow talking about pine cones and Illuminati. But I'm thinking about doing, for one of the later rituals in the year, I'm thinking about doing the Anunnaki instead of a god and goddess, because I kind of want to dig into all of that. And so if I do that, we're going to be talking about the pine cones big time. I'm so glad you liked it. Those fire opals come directly from the mine to you from Mexico. Fire opals largely come from Mexico, and certainly the best quality fire opals in the world definitely come from Mexico. And they're alive. Fire opals just seem like they're incandescent. Oh, that's cool. Shay put a recommendation for a video. And what would be nice too, if you guys find videos that you really like on this, maybe you can share the links for us in the Sabbatical group so that we can go down the rabbit hole with you. That'd be really fun. Maybe you find a video I haven't seen yet, so I could go learn something new about all this. Fire opals are for transformation. And if you think about what the gods represent, and I'll kind of leave you with this. If you think about what the gods truly represent, they represent transformation. They represent this idea that by activating some of these dormant energies, we can transform something in our own lives. And for me, that's really the magic. You're going to hear me say a lot of these words this year, integration and activation. But I think so much of what we need to know is already in the field, to my point earlier with 0 point and quantum theory. So much of what we need to know is already inside. We just have to activate it. So how do we do that? And I think as we become so much more advanced in our own understanding and our own teaching and learning with each other, I mean, if you think about it, even though we're still kind of in the old model right now, we're already ramping up to a different level and layer of the work that we're going to do together this year. We can activate together. You're going to find, like, slowly but surely, all these little keys to all these little doors that start being unlocked. But to my point earlier, I think, you have to really ask yourself, how much do you want to know? Because at some point, I think it's all available to you. The question is, at what price? Right? It's a powerful question. Powerful question to sit with. All right. Well, thank you for sharing tonight. That hour went by really fast. Is that weird? Was it weird for you just now? Do you feel like that was an hour? I kind of feel like I lost time there for a minute. Maybe it went by really slowly for you. I was like, seriously, I'm looking at it. I'm like, was that an hour? A little weird for me how fast that went. But anyway, I will look to the Facebook group to see if you have any lingering questions that I can answer. I know it always goes by so fast, but you'll see me again very soon. Please, please, please join me Thursday night for full moon when we honor Zeus and Athena and we call in energies of power and enlightenment for the year ahead. Transformation. We're going to be calling in visions to show you what needs to happen for you in 2017, big picture. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then in February, we're working with 2 new Hindu gods, Rati and Kamadeva, who are the love gods in the Hindu pantheon. Hence where the Kama Sutra comes from. So we're going to be talking about sex and passion and connection and intimacy in February with those two gods. So I'm very much looking forward to starting that conversation with you too. Sexy time, Hindu sexy time magic ahead, everybody. And then we'll bounce around to a different pantheon in March. So there's lots to tell you. So stay tuned. As I said, the new sets for the new classes will be live in the morning. So you'll want to be on the lookout for those if you are joining the new classes. I'm trying to keep both the cost of the classes and the cost of the supplies down. So I'm excited about that too. The kits are going to be smaller, more affordable. Classes are going to be smaller, more affordable, to make sure that if you want to participate in 2017, that it's possible for you. Well, welcome, Erin. You're never too late. At least you got to join us for a few minutes here live at the end, and then you can always, of course, go back and watch the recording too. So I will see you guys Thursday for the full moon. In the meantime, be well. Get lots of rest. Even though Mercury is direct, there's still some funky energy in the field. So smudge, get some rest. The classes will be, pre-registration will be open on Thursday. So I'm going to be announcing that at the full moon. So when pre-registration goes live, you should register sooner than later. I probably will cap the classes this year. I just don't know at what size. But I don't want to end up with a gem class that's the size of Gem Haven. So I'm going to have to figure that out. As soon as the classes are live for pre-registration, I will post those links in the Sabbatical and Sanctum classrooms. I will also post the links for the class kits in the morning as well when those go live. Woo! I know we have so much fun ahead, and the full moon is upon us. So good night, everybody. I will see you soon. Lots of love from me to you, and from Athena and Zeus too. Bye.